Good afternoon, everyone. I'm John Schultz. I'm a professor of Asian religion and philosophy here at Kansai Gaidai University. I'm very pleased to be with you today, and I especially want to thank Maimu and Hiro, who gave that excellent introduction. They are very clever students, and they have fantastic English language skills as well. So today, if I could, I would like to think kind of about the big picture of kami in mythology in Shinto, as it appears in the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki. But before we do, we should clarify one point, and that is, did you know, kami is an English word? Isn't that something? Yeah, kami is now in the Oxford Dictionary, in the Webster's Dictionary. So we don't have to translate kami. Well, we can just say kami when we're talking about gods in Japan. That's a really important point to think about. And Japanese culture has influenced English language so much. Look at all these loan words, including great words like otaku, nigiri, hikikomori, ponzu, honcho. These are all words that have become English words from Japanese, including kami. So today, if we could, I want to look at three big picture questions with respect to Shinto and mythology or Shinwa, as we've discussed in the story of Izanagi and Izanami. So the first big question, and this is really important when we're thinking about culture and society, the first big question is, what is the structure of the universe or the cosmos, kind of the bigger structure, if you will? What is the structure of the universe and cosmos? And then secondarily, of course, as we saw in the story described by Maimu and Hiro, also, how does the world begin? So we can compare these across cultures, and that's a super interesting question to understand. So in the story, in the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, everything begins in Takamagahara. That's hard for me to say. The high plane of heaven. So thinking about the story, we can understand that Izanagi and Izanami are in the high plane of heaven, and then they create the second realm, the earthly realm where we live, by using the jeweled spear with this sort of mixing motion, if you will. So here's a nice chart. We can see there are kind of like three worlds, three realms. The high plane of heaven, the middle realm, earth, where we live, and then what we'll talk about in a moment, there's this kind of third realm, which is really mysterious. Yomi no Kuni, or Nei no Kuni, seems to be the place where people go when they die. So in terms of Shinto cosmology, as presented in the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki, we kind of have this basic structure. But when we're thinking about that story, it's all kind of centered on Japan, right? Izanagi and Izanami make Japan first. By the way, let me ask you a question. What's the first Japanese island made by Izanagi and Izanami? Can you guess? Think deeply. Guess right now. What's the first island made by Izanagi and Izanami? Are you ready? Boom. Awaji. Awaji is generally considered to be Onogoro, the mythological island that is the first island made by Izanagi and Izanami. Isn't that amazing? Have you been to Awaji? It's really quite remarkable. But if you think about it, Awaji is kind of like the Hara of Japan, right? It's kind of like the center, the gut of the nation, if you will. So people from Awaji are very proud oftentimes of the fact that they were number one. They were the first. And so again, when we're thinking about cosmology and creation stories, we can have a really excellent basis of comparison between cultures, right? So for instance, maybe some of you have heard about the creation story in the Bible. God makes the world in 6 days, and then he's a little bit tired. It's a lot of work, right? So on the 7th day, on Sunday, he rests. And so Christian people and Jewish people say, because God rested on Sunday, we should rest on Sunday too. That sounds like a great idea, right? God creates the first humans. It's also a couple, Adam and Eve, but they are not divine. They are not gods like Izanagi and Izanami. They are simply human, and they make mistakes like humans as well. So we can use these stories to kind of compare cultures. Many different cultures have many different creation stories. The second big question in sociology, in religious studies, in your life, actually, everyone everywhere around the world eventually has to ask the very basic human question: what happens when we die? What happens when we die? So later in Japan, Buddhism is going to have kind of the primary explanation for what happens when we die. You can go to Gokuraku Jodo, or you can go to Jigoku. But those are Buddhist places, kind of Buddhist ideas about what happens when we die. In the Kojiki, when poor Izanami experiences this very painful death, giving birth to the kami of fire, she has to go to the land of Yomi, Yomi no Kuni. So if we look again at this chart, this is a little interesting because the Kojiki and Nihon Shoki don't make it very clear whether Yomi no Kuni is a separate world or if it's just underground in the earth. So that's why you can see in this chart, they have both Yomi no Kuni in the middle realm, in the earthly realm, but also below. Also, it's not completely clear if Yomi no Kuni and Nei no Kuni are two different places or are the same place. Isn't that amazing? It's not particularly clear. What does Yomi no Kuni look like? I think for our mental image, we have to think about like being inside of a kofun, being inside of a traditional Japanese tomb. It's dark, it's sometimes wet or damp. It's kind of scary, underground place, if you will. So that should be kind of your mental picture. But it's not hell. It's not punishment for doing something bad. Everybody seems to have to go to Yomi no Kuni. So that's a really important point for us to remember. Okay, big question number 3. What is the character of God or gods? So God with a capital G would be like the Christian God, the Muslim God, the God of Jewish people. That is the one and only God. But here in Japan, there are many gods, right? In Japanese, you say Yaoyorozu no Kami. That is that there are 8 million gods, plural, right? Absolutely. So in terms of the gods of Japan, the kami in their character, already we can see some characteristics that have come out as a basic question. Can the gods die? Can they die? Yes, absolutely. Poor Izanami dies, and she has to go to the place of the dead, the land of Yomi. The Christian God cannot die. He lasts forever. So Halloween is coming up, right? And if we go to USJ, if we go to Universal Studios Japan, we're going to see so many zombies, right? The living dead. The description in the Kojiki, Izanami is really like a zombie. Poor zombie Izanami. So yes, according to Japanese mythology, gods can die. That's a really important point for us to think about. In Christianity, for instance, God is perfect. He doesn't have emotions like imperfect emotions. He doesn't make mistakes and so forth. But when we look at Japanese mythology, you'll recall when Izanagi purifies himself, we get the three royal kami: Amaterasu, Tsukiyomi, and Susanoo. But later on in the Kojiki, there's like a big fight between big sister and younger brother. Susanoo behaves really badly, and he angers his older sister Amaterasu. Do you remember what happens? What does she do? Amaterasu gets angry at her brother Susanoo, and she hides herself in a cave. This is a terrible situation for us and for the other kami. Why? Because Amaterasu is the sun goddess. Without Amaterasu, we are living in darkness. So the other kami kind of trick Amaterasu to come out of the cave. And this is a very famous image. Once again, the world can enjoy sunshine. So gods aren't perfect. They're rather like humans in traditional Japanese stories. They get angry, they get frustrated, they show a lot of emotions. So in terms of characteristics of gods, that would be super important. And finally, perhaps most important, what form or shape do gods take? That's a really important question for sociology, for the study of humans. So already in the stories from Japanese mythology, we see gods taking a form that is very similar to humans, a human shape. But that's just one of many forms kami can take in Japan, isn't it? So for instance, in Japanese, you have the term shintai. In English, that would literally be the body of the kami. And shintai can have many different forms. When your mother says, you have to eat all your rice, don't waste any rice, because there are 7 kami in 1 grain of rice. Okay, the rice is a shintai. Isn't that amazing? Of course, great big and mysterious trees all over Japan are considered either kami or the shintai of kami as well. Fantastic mountains, waterfalls, natural things like this can be considered kami. So kami have all of these kind of fantastic shapes. In fact, in Japan, even mascots, even yurukyara can become kami. Most famously here in Osaka, in Kansai, everybody loves Billy Ken. Billy Ken has become a Shinto kami. Absolutely. For instance, if you go to Matsuo Jinja and in Kobe City, you can see that Billy Ken is treated like other kami, the kami of good luck. So in Japan, when we're thinking about the character of kami, kami can take many shapes and many different forms. All right, returning to the story of Izanagi and Izanami, we can say it's not really a happy ending, right? It's kind of a terrible divorce. Zombie Izanami chases Izanagi out of the land of Yomi. And it's really sad and terrible situation for a once happy couple. But when we think about the many types of Shintai, when we think about the many forms of kami, maybe there's a happy ending. If you go to Ise, Ise Jingu is said to be the home for Amaterasu in Tsukiyomi, are said to live at Ise. But when people go to Ise, often they will go visit the Meoto Iwa, the married rocks. And many people say that the Meoto Iwa, the married rocks, are our old friends, Izanagi and Izanami. Hopefully, living happily ever after. Thank you all so very much. It's been a pleasure. Please take care and think deeply about culture and society. Bye-bye.